Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for joining the latest edition of our PeopleSoft Masters series. We're going to be focusing today on the state of chatbots for PeopleSoft customers. We've got quite a few people joining this afternoon, which is very exciting. This is a session that I've gotten a chance to see at the Alliance conference a few weeks ago. And I always find Andrew's presentations a combination of both entertaining and informative. For those of you who have joined, you will likely see invitations from us for future webinars, all centered around PeopleSoft content, some of it delivered, some of it bolt-on, but always about ways that you can enhance and improve your PeopleSoft experience, whether we're talking about productivity, efficiency, user experience, any or all of the above. I am very pleased to, well, actually, before I do that, let me do a couple of pieces of housekeeping. One is, if you have questions, we encourage you to post those. You can post those in the chat or in the Q&A. We're happy to take a pause from the session itself and address any questions as they come in. We may also choose to address some of those at the close of the session. I know that there's a lot of stuff that Andrew has to cover during this, so please be patient with us if we don't happen to get to your questions immediately. We are recording today, as you're probably already aware. We will be sending out a link to this recording within the next week after we complete the webinar, and you can typically also find links to these on the Gideon Taylor website, on our YouTube channel, and probably also via the IntraSee website. For those of you who may not be familiar with Gideon Taylor, I know there are some folks on the call today that probably aren't. We are a full-service PeopleSoft services provider and solutions provider. We have a number of logos on our background today, including the Gideon Taylor logo, the IntraSee logo, and the Newbury logo, combining not only traditional PeopleSoft services, implementations, upgrades, helping organizations migrate to the cloud and evaluate their options in the cloud, but also striving to help drive greater efficiency, greater productivity, and greater effectiveness within the PeopleSoft applications that you use, helping you to extend those far beyond maybe what you're using them for today and far beyond what Oracle may have even imagined when they originally introduced the applications. So allowing for you to drive greater self-service, greater user experience, user satisfaction, and workflow-driven processes. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand this over to Andrew Bediz. Andrew has a deep and long history with PeopleSoft. And like I mentioned, I'm looking forward to this session. And thank you all for joining.
Well, thanks, Scott, for having me. Can you hear me all right? Am I coming through?
Absolutely.
All right. Hi, everybody. Great to be here, talk about state of chatbots. We have been neck deep in this technology for many years. In fact, predating the release of Oracle Digital Assistants itself. We were using this technology before Oracle had an offering with PeopleSoft customers, and we have since kind of moved over to using Oracle's technology. So we have a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in this technology. We've got a lot of lessons learned. And one of the things that always becomes kind of very evident is that everybody's confused over what it means when you say chatbot in the market, and rightfully so. You know, the marketeers have made it very difficult to understand. So the purpose of today's session is to help you understand what are the different kinds of chatbots? What are your options as a PeopleSoft customer? What are maybe some of the pros and cons, benefits of these options? And then we're going to go into a demo. Since we do so much work in this space, we're going to show you some practical examples of things we've done for clients so you can really start dreaming about the possibilities. So without further ado, I am going to start with some slides. So let me attempt to share my screen here, and hopefully this works okay. Scott or Mark, you seeing this? Give me a thumbs up if you are.
We're seeing your presenter view. We're not seeing the slide.
All right. So let me hit a little button over here and do this. Let's do this. Is this working?
That does.
All right. All right, let's go. So Mark's with me. Mark Amon's with me. He runs our cloud stuff. Again, my name's Andrew Bediz. A little bit about me. Now managing director of IntraSee, which is a division of Gideon Taylor. So kind of let's start with the basics, right? What is a chatbot? When you hear that word, what does it mean? You might see that in marketing materials and webinars and presentations. So in the simplest terms, what it is it's the automation used, that's where bot comes from, right? It's automation used to respond to a user's chat or natural language, right? So traditionally, when we interact with enterprise software, what are we doing, right? We're pointing, we're clicking, or we're searching. That's really kind of it, right? Generally speaking. So a chatbot is kind of flipping that dynamic into using our voice and our language instead of our mouse and our clicker, right? So the thing is all these years, what's happened in enterprise software is the human beings have been forced to understand how to use the computers, right? And so you can imagine that has materialized itself in ways like prompt views, right? And pivot grids. And you got to understand these things, codes, right? And related displays and translates. You have to understand these things in order to get what you need out of enterprise software. Really, when you think about that, though, the tail's wagging the dog, right? The software is here to make it easier for the human, not the human making it easier for the software. So this is what the promise of the technology is all about, that instead of us learning, figuring out, and being trained on enterprise software, let's just ask the question in our normal voice. Let's have the computers carry the burden of figuring out how to help me rather than the other way around. And while we might not be at that nirvana today, that is the path that we are definitely on. And so in the purest sense, a bot could be used to do anything you do on a website today, right? So while a lot of use cases you might see out there, simple Q&A, it can be used to process transactions. It can be used to look up data, deal with workflow, alerts, nudges, tasks. It can be used to do analytics, all sorts of things. So if you can do it today on the web with point and click, you can do it in chat. So that's what a chatbot is. So why do this? Why go through and implement, a chatbot or a digital assistant? Well, the first is probably the most simplest is saving money. Gartner has done a bunch of studies on help desks, service desks. By their estimates, the lowest level calls cost about $19 per interaction as service, right? That's looking at it holistically, facilities, computers, personnel, training, management, right? $19 per simplest case. If you get escalated up, that ticket cost could be $200, $300, right? In the world of automation, we're going to drive that interaction cost to around $1. So a massive amount of savings that can be had here. You can have personalization, right? So today, when you talk to a human being, they often don't really know who you are, know much about you, right? They may be asking your question as if you're an employee in the US, but you're really an employee in Canada, right? That's a frustrating experience. But when you're automating it with computers and the machine can know about you. It can know about your persona and personalize to you. Of course, it's going to be available 24/7, right? You're getting answers in 2 seconds, right? Gartner says the average response time to a help desk ticket across all industries is 27 hours. I think we all have that same feeling, right? Whether we're about to chat with somebody live or submit a ticket or send an email, we're already frustrated on how long it's going to take to get our issue resolved. So imagine getting that answer in 2 seconds and being able to do it in over 100 languages. It's an incredible amount of service. If we can do it right, this technology can really make people, happy. And overall, it's a better user experience. I don't have to know where to click or what to search for. I don't have to be trained. I'll just ask in my own words. So this is the value proposition of the technology. Let's look a little bit at the data, right? Oftentimes, when people are looking at chatbots, they're often comparing them to the human being. So looking at some of that data, I mentioned this already, response time is far better. Accuracy, that often gets overlooked. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more as we go here, but response accuracy is the single most important feature you need to consider when you look at this technology. And why do I say that? Well, we've all had that experience. You go into a chat, you ask a question, you ask Siri, you ask Alexa, and it's not even in the same ballpark. It has no idea what you're asking, or it answers a question that has nothing to do with what you just asked. And immediately you're frustrated, you think this doesn't work, and you'll never come back, right? And if you never come back, there's no ROI. So accuracy is super important. We have with the work that we're doing, we're hitting like 90%, 95% accuracy, which is better than human beings. So we're actually more accurate than if you were to talk to a help desk person. Obviously, the costs are better, right? These bots work every hour of every day. They never have a bad day. They're never sick. They never take vacation, and they can handle an unlimited amount of volume, right? And so there's a lot of promise here. So when we look at the market, I think right away, you'll often hear the terms chatbot and digital assistant. So, they don't have strict definitions. People use them interchangeably. They use them in the wrong ways. From an Oracle standpoint, the technology is called digital assistants because it does more than chat. It can help you get stuff done. It can help you get your job done, help you execute transactions, pull up data, that sort of thing. Whereas chatbot, I think traditionally was meant to be, it's just FAQs back and forth. Now, it's not always used in that fashion. So oftentimes they're synonyms. But if we break the market down in a little bit more detail, we would, in our opinion, kind of put them into 4 categories: stage 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? Stage 1 is kind of the simplest example of a bot you see. We'll call these FAQ bots. Their only purpose is to take questions and answers. Literally, you've probably seen those old FAQ web pages that a company or a school will put up, and will have Q : the question, A : the answer. Literally, FAQ bots are just that. It's pure content. It's not that dynamic. It's not personalized. It's most common. You'll see it in a lot of consumer use cases, and it can definitely deflect calls, and it tends to be at a lower price point. But oftentimes it's not using true AI, machine learning based AI. Sometimes it's a web search disguised to look like a chat. And so stage 1 is where you'll see the greatest quantity of vendors. Stage 1 is where you'll have the greatest amount of confusion. You won't be able to determine what's the difference between product A and product B. They all seem the same. That is very classic of stage 1. Stage 2 is what I would call verticalized chatbots, right? So these are vendors who introduce a chatbot in their vertical category, right? So for example, Salesforce has Einstein. It's delivered with Salesforce. You can enable it, you can license it, and it will help you interact with Salesforce. Its primary objective is to extend the user interface for that application only, right? Log a Salesforce ticket, look at the Salesforce knowledge base, interact with your Salesforce tickets. That's what the vertical chatbot's for, right? Same thing can be said for bots they have in ServiceNow, for example, or you'll see more and more products adding this, but it's locked into the vertical of that product. Right? Stage 3 is what I call enterprise digital assistant platforms. This is the do-it-yourself, build-it-yourself type of platform, right? Common examples here are IBM Watson, Google Dialogflow, Microsoft Lewis, and of course, Oracle Digital Assistants. These are very powerful machine learning-based AI tools, right, that are usually pay per SIP, metered cloud services, but you have to build the bot yourself in most cases, right? And so you can have all the power in the world, but you then need to have the expertise. You need to hire someone who understands AI, a computational linguist, probably a data scientist. And if it's not your core business, it can be a barrier, right? A powerful tool, but can be expensive and take some time to implement. Stage 4 is really the nirvana. This is the area we try to, we are aspiring to be stage 4 in the work we do, which is let's use the most sophisticated AI technology, such as Oracle Digital Assistants, but let's make it more turnkey, right? Let's pre-deliver content and questions and integration adapters and have advanced features like nudging, alerting, creating a conversational enterprise, if you will. Be able to do anything in your enterprise through the conversational AI. And that's where we're playing. Picasso, I would put them maybe at like 2.5. I'll talk a little bit about that here in a second. ODA is traditionally stage 3 as well. So let's just quickly look at some of the typical features you'll see in the market. And for the purposes of this presentation, I'm going to kind of lump in FAQ bots at stage 1 into a category. I'm going to put Picasso in its own category. And if you don't know what Picasso is, I should have probably started there. My slides might be a bit out of order, but Picasso is some pre-delivered PeopleSoft oriented skills on top of ODA. And then I'm going to use ODA and IDA. IDA is basically our software that sits on top of ODA. And so if you look at some of these features, you can see something like an FAQ bot has a good price point, but is pretty basic in its functionality. Things like authentication, personalization, and data access, transactions, nudging, multi-channel, running on Teams, running on other channels like that. It's not as good. So it is a baby step, but it's a very kind of narrow use case. Picasso, you can see some of the features up a level. You have more enterprise features, more extensibility, more value that can be unlocked there, integrations that can be unlocked. It comes with integration to PeopleSoft, right? And then, of course, if you go down the ODA path, this is where you get the most amount of value, right? May take a little bit more investment, but you will unlock that $1 versus $19 value in a much more scalable way. So before we get into talking a little bit about the product options and eventually the demo, I want to spend a moment to talk about accuracy. Accuracy is king. Almost in every demo I've ever done with a prospective client, they hardly ever ask any questions about accuracy. And that, to me, is a big red flag that the industry has not made it evident to customers how important accuracy is. You can look here on the left. This is a screenshot of an interaction I had with a bot, right? And what you can see here is I'm asking about, this is a CRM tool that I post social media posts on a schedule, right? And so when I make a post, it says, what time do you want this to be posted? Okay, I say at 3 o'clock. Well, we're a global company. What does 3 o'clock even mean, right? Where are the servers? Where am I? Who knows? So I simply go in here. What time zone are my posts in? That's a really basic question. And look at the responses. I would put these in the category of not even in the ballpark. These aren't even close. What do you think the likelihood is that I'm going to use this chatbot again? It's pretty close to zero, right? It was completely unhelpful. And this is why accuracy is so important. If you don't evaluate accuracy, ask questions about accuracy, how is accuracy measured? How is it performing? You run the risk of investing in a project that yields results like you're seeing here on the screen. It is one of the most overlooked features. And to maximize accuracy, you really need to you need to understand the difference between these different engines. There's rules-based engines and machine learning engines. Rules-based, think of that as, if I could overly simplify, it's a lot of, if then else statements. It's more code-oriented, whereas machine learning is more kind of like how a Tesla can tell the difference between a red light and a green light. Machine learning is a lot more powerful. It can handle things like misspellings and bad grammar, poor sentence structure. It's a lot more tolerant of these things. And that's how you get really good accuracy numbers. So when you're looking at what's the right choice for you, ask a lot of questions about accuracy and ask how that accuracy is measured and reported upon and how they're doing in accuracy. That's my first piece of advice. If I look at our own data, of course, we track it like crazy. If you don't measure it, you can't improve it, as they say. And so we not only measure our own accuracy, we have human beings validating that accuracy, right? There's not an algorithm that's telling us we were accurate. We actually have a human being look at what the result of the machine was and tell us, yes, you did the right thing or you didn't. And then we compare that to the titans of the industry in the consumer space. So you can see here, we're using Oracle Digital Assistant's platform, and we're getting as high as the 95th percentile in accuracy. When you look at some of the leaders to the left, someone like Alexa, right, is doing around 78%. So we like to compare ourselves against these folks and always keep our eye on it. And so if you do a project like this, I also encourage you that accuracy is not a one-time thing. It is an evolution. It is, language changes. There's seasonality in business process. It's something you should always keep your eyes on and always make sure you're performing well. So let's talk about Picasso. What is Picasso exactly? So if you're a PeopleSoft customer and you want to implement Picasso, essentially what Picasso is it is a free, what we call skill. A skill is a certain question and answer flow designed on the Oracle Digital Assistant platform. So the very first thing you have to do if you want to implement Picasso is you have to license Oracle's digital assistant, right? And there are minimums at play. It's about $50,000 a year to get an ODA tenancy. And then you can use Picasso. So Picasso is a multi-skilled PeopleSoft digital assistant. It comes with a web chat UI. Unfortunately, only runs in Fluid right now. It doesn't run on classic pages, and you have to be within PeopleSoft. But it has pre-built integrations into PeopleSoft. So you can see here a list of some of the skills. You can see the requirements, got to be on 85707 or higher. Those are the images that you need there. And you can see the list of skills they have today. And they plan to grow this and add to this. Just so everybody knows, the Oracle Digital Assistant platform, this concept of skills is a modular concept that you can plug in skills. So implementing Picasso is simply getting you a handful of pre-built skills. You then could add your own skills on top of that and create your own flavor of a digital assistant. So in fact, one of the things we do in our digital assistant, it's the same thing as Picasso, but rather than being focused on the PeopleSoft user experience and PeopleSoft data, it's meant to be a one-stop shop to everything an employee, manager, student, faculty, advisor might need, right? Which extends beyond PeopleSoft. It might touch IT support. It might touch facilities, right? Where do I park, or how do I get my security badge reprinted up, right? It might touch health and wellness. It could, do things outside of enterprise data, things that are policy oriented. And so we have skills just like Picasso has skills. In fact, we can mix our IDA skills with Picasso skills. But our target with IDA is to use the ODA platform to really be a one-stop shop enterprise-wide. Picasso is meant to be a PeopleSoft extension of its user interface. PeopleSoft is a sliver of what IDA does. So it's going after a different use case. They don't really compete. And in fact, they can leverage each other. And there's some examples there of what we're doing, but I'm going to show you a demo. So no need to kind of dwell on that. All right, time for a demo. Let's see how we're doing on time here. Oh, we got lots of time. So I'm going to show you a whole bunch of demos. And I'm going to kind of escalate from simple use cases to more complicated use cases. If you have questions as we go, feel free to throw them in chat. Hopefully we'll have time to get to all your questions. If we don't, Scott mentioned, we will keep note of them. We'll follow up with you, make sure you get an answer one way or the other. So let me stop here. And let's start with, let me show you a little bit of Picasso. So here is my demo environment of Picasso. So what you'll see here is I'm logged in. This is actually the most recent release of People Tools. You can see that, you can see the UI there. I think it's 859. And I am going to open this up. And this is a video I recorded earlier, the environment. I wasn't sure was going to be available, so I recorded a video. What you can see is I'm logged into the Fluid homepage, and I see that little icon on the bottom. When I click it, it jumps out and says, hey, I'm Picasso. Here are the things I can do. You can see this cards concept that they use in Picasso. And what this is it is a method, it is a design method in digital assistants of sort of like menuing. They're presenting a series of options that you can click on. So you can see there's absence, which has about 3 different buttons I can click on. I move over, benefits has about 3 different buttons I can click on. And employee directory has about 3 different buttons I can click on. So there's about 3 different areas in the HR realm here. And then there's one for finance, I think for expenses, which you see, and payroll, sorry. And so I'm kind of toggling left to right, and I see these cards, and I can click these buttons. Now, you're probably wondering, right? Rightfully so. Well, can I just type in my question? And you can, but they show you the buttons to try to, kind of make it a bit easier to discover the type of functionality that is available. Because if they just left you to typing things out, you might not find what you're looking for. So in this case, I say paycheck. It's got an integration real time. It hits PeopleSoft, and I'm pulling back the data for my paycheck. And so on and on here we'll go. We'll kind of show. You can see here now I'm going to type in, take some vacation time. Now this is using the natural language processing. It's taking your statement. It's trying to identify what your intent is. In this case, it does. Now there's what we call a dialogue flow here, in that it's going to ask you for more information, right? So you want to take vacation. Well, when does it start? When does it end? And so it's going to prompt you, as you can see here, when does your absence begin? And I come in here, I type in October 15th, right? When does it end? And I'm going to type in October 18th. Do you want to upload any documents? I'm going to say no here, right? And then it's going to confirm. I'm going to hit yes. What's happening here is all going through integration broker. It's ultimately going to fire off a component interface, which is then going to save this data. So as far as you're concerned, if you look on the back end, this user could have used the website to put in their vacation or the chat. It looks the same on the back end, right? So I'm going to move along here and I'm going to look at, what's my vacation balance? It identifies what that is. It's going to fire off a query in PeopleSoft, get that data and return it. So pretty straightforward. Here's an example of the corporate directory. You want to look up someone's phone number. As long as you have all this data in PeopleSoft, this is kind of how it would work. This is all corporate directory information. Who reports to Betty Lockerty? And now we're going to jump over to direct deposit, and you can see that. This example is a little bit different in that it has cards because there could be more than one deposit account. And so by clicking on write, you get more cards. We'll talk about this here in a second. The card concept can be helpful. It also is something that can be challenging. If you have any intent of using other channels such as SMS or voice channels like Alexa, you want to spend some time thinking about how are you formatting your responses? Are they accessible, right, to screen readers? Are they easily transferable to different channels such as voice and text? And your use of cards may be impacted by how you want to deploy digital assistants. In the case of Picasso, it doesn't matter because there's only one channel, which is on the Fluid homepage. All right, so let's do some more here. Let me show you. Let's kick it up a notch. So I'm going to stop this. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you an example of a public-facing fictitious university. This is going to use ODA. So it's using the same technology Picasso is using, but it's using IDA to deploy a public resource for any constituent of the university, right? So I don't have to be logged in like I was in the previous example. I could be a prospective student, I could be a parent, community member, what have you. So let me start with, oops, hold on, I lost my window. Here we go. So let me open this up. So one of the challenges with a guest chat, which you'll often see with FAQ bots, when you don't log in, I don't know who you are, and it's not personalized. That when you look at surveys that Gartner does of CIOs, always in the top 10 list, you have the digital transformation, always, right? Priorities, but you also have personalization as part of digital transformation. So we always are looking for ways to make sure we're being personalized. If it's overly generic, we've had that experience with the IVR systems. You're on the phone and it's giving you an answer that has nothing to do with you. It's overly generic. You just get frustrated. You hit zero, right? And that's what we're trying to avoid. So in this case, because I'm not logged in, I'm going to ask them to tell me a little bit about who they are. I'm going to say student. So let's start with something like, I'm still not sure, some of these institutions, are we traveling? Like what's going on with travel? So let's do something like, what is the travel policy? And what you'll see here is an entirely different UX than the previous example. So this demo here, now we're into the land of enterprise digital assistants using ODA. It's a more kind of sophisticated version, right? And instead of presenting you buttons and little kind of tiles to flip through. We're just going to leave it open-ended. You ask any question you want, because when you start to get up to having 300, 600, 1,000 different things you can handle, you can't reasonably present a series of buttons, right? That just won't work. You have to rely on the NLP more. So here I'm going to say, what is a travel policy? You'll notice I misspelled it. I'm going to throw in curveballs as we go to illustrate that it doesn't matter that I misspell words, because it's not looking at specific spellings or specific words or strings. And it was confident enough it knew my answer. And here's my answer about coronavirus and how it's impacting our travel policy. You'll notice that we're going to collect some data too while we're doing this. Not only all your interactions, what you type, what you click, but how about your satisfaction? Thumbs up, thumbs down. We're going to use that data later on to evolve and get smarter over time. You also see that it's identifying themes in my questions, right? My question about the travel policy is probably related to all international travel policies. And it's also probably related to COVID-19 because of the seasonal nature of what we're dealing with right now. So that would allow me to explore other content in that area, either COVID-19 or international travel. I'm going to skip that for now. So let's do something else. Let's do an example here. I need to, let's see, check COVID. I'm going to misspell COVID. That's the most important word there. Also, this is not a question, right? So what this is, we call this an ambiguous utterance, right? And what that means is, as you probably are well aware, human beings are not very good at communicating succinctly and clearly, right? And so in our data from our customers, we have seen up to 35% of the time, right, we get ambiguous questions. That is to say, questions that lack detail for us to understand what exactly they mean, right? So a human being in this situation, they would probably say, well, what do you mean you need to check COVID? What are you trying to check? You're trying to check for symptoms? You need to get a test? You want to check the policy? Like, you got to give me more before I give you an answer. That happens 35% of the time. So if you're going to get to 90% accuracy, you better handle that 35%. So what we do here in the ODA platform is a process called disambiguation. So the AI knows that it's not certain enough. It knows what I'm asking, but it knows kind of the ballpark I'm playing it. So it'll come back to me and say, well, were you asking me about, updates about our COVID policies, or where I can, does the healthcare, University Healthcare provide COVID tests? Was that what you were asking me? Why, yes, it was. I was asking this question. I click it and there it goes. I get my answer. Very important you handle this because you will see when you look at logs, some real awful questions being asked in terms of clarity and sentence structure. But let's do another one. This is a real life example I always show because I love the potential that it shows, right? So something like this virus is crazy, right? I am so stressed out. I don't know what to do. It's a stream of consciousness. It's 3 sentences. I never actually ask a question. This can be particularly hard for the algorithms to get right because of all the sentences. It's very difficult to understand which ones, meaningful, which ones aren't, which ones erroneous noise. ODA actually does a really fabulous job with this, especially in later releases. So when we saw this at a client, somebody had typed this in, our eyes kind of, switched over to it. We're like, whoa, I wonder what the AI decided to do in that situation. And so when we took a look, we saw this answer, and it seemed, innocuous and a little, not that impressive. But when I considered it, it was about wellness centers and telehealth and counseling services via the wellness website. I thought, well, this is brilliant because I don't know if a human being would have given this information to this statement. I think a human being, if it were me, I'd probably, express some empathy. Yeah, I know it's been crazy. Hopefully it gets better soon, but that would probably result in a bunch of small talk. I don't know that I would give them any actionable information. And in this case, the AI gave them something they could actually do that probably could help them in this situation they're in. And I think that shows the promise of how this technology really could be better than human beings if we really care and nurture for it and implement it, the right way. So let's kick it up a notch. I'm going to start with some employee managers examples related to HR. I am then going to move over, show some student examples as well. And I'm also going to show you some Microsoft Teams stuff too. So let's go to my next website here. I'll show you a familiar login page. Hopefully it does. Hopefully you're getting that. You should get a PeopleSoft login page. And let's log in as a manager. The website I'm logging in now is our demo website. There's a bunch of employee portal stuff here. It's not the topic of this presentation, so I won't spend any time on it. I'm really just using it as a way to get to chat. So if I open up chat here, I'm going to resize my window to be kind of mobile size. Maybe the first thing I'm going to do is say hi. So I've logged in. I'm going to say hi. And it says, hello, Betty. And, I'm here to help you. So right away, you can tell what is, different to the previous example is that it knows who I am. We're actually piggybacking on the authentication, just like Picasso did, right? But one thing you'll notice here is, oh, look, while I have you, I've noticed you have some outstanding tasks to be completed. When we talk to employees or even students, one of the pieces of feedback we always get is, hey, just tell me what I need to do today, by tomorrow, by this week, and don't put the burden on me to check and to manage these deadlines. Why don't you just tell me when you need me to do something, right? That's the nirvana for an employee or for a student. You just tell me. That's what's happening here. While I have you functionality, it's kind of a nudging proactive chat functionality. So I'm going to say yes. So in this particular situation, we're actually using ODA and IDA to hit a bunch of adapters to consolidate my to-dos and tasks from all the HR enterprise systems I use. HR Worklist is actually PeopleSoft. Learning is SuccessFactors. Requisitions is Job Requisitions. That's Taleo. Time is Kronos. And these other ones are these other IntraSee modules. So I'll say, well, I didn't realize, I remember having this conversation about this job rec. I didn't realize I had something to do. Let's take a look at that. Oh yeah, okay. I need to approve this requisition. So I'm actually interacting with data from Taleo right here, just as I would data from PeopleSoft in that Picasso example. So we're trying to get it to a one-stop shop, right? All your enterprise systems accessible via chat. So I could approve this right here, but you know what? I'm going to decide later because I've got other things to show you anyway. So let's start with something. We already showed you the pay example from Picasso. I won't belabor that. You could have policy matters, right? So something like when does my LOA finish? That's a leave of absence, right? So Picasso is gonna grab data points for you, but oftentimes we have clients that have policy that complement the data. This is one such example. I might be on a leave of absence. I might want to check my benefits or my paycheck, but then very quickly I want to know, well, what's the policy for how long this leave of absence is going to last? And boom, I get my answer. I could then explore other questions that I can help with about leave of absences, right? Is my job protected? Will I get paid when I'm on leave? Right? So really a one-stop shop for all the types of questions I might ask about leave of absences. But let's say you've already spent a lot of time and you've built up a knowledge base full of answers. And maybe your help desk already uses that knowledge base. You don't want to take all that data and copy it, into the cloud or into another product. But what if the digital assistant could go connect to that system and use it? So let's do something like, do I need travel authorization? I happen to know that this travel stuff is stored in a Salesforce article. So what's happening here is the digital assistant has gone out to Salesforce. It has summarized the answer. I can access the full article. If I click here, that's the full article. Normally it's longer than that, but that's what it is in this demo. And boom, I have my answer. So the beauty here is the digital assistant has now gone to Salesforce and pulled that content for me, and I never had to go there. I never had to understand my login or any of that. Let's kick it up a notch. Let's do manager self-service, right? Manager self-service is always difficult. right? You got to train them. They always forget. They don't do it frequently enough, and they call HR. Now, remember that slide where I said $19 for the cheapest interaction? Well, when you call the HR generalist, that's not $19, right? That one's much more expensive. So let's try to deflect some of that work so HR can focus on strategic things, right? So let's do something like, I'd like to move Diane to Nettie next week. So this is a more advanced enterprise digital assistant type of feature that you're going to see here. It is going to take me through an advanced dialogue flow. It's going to actually process a transaction inside of PeopleSoft in this case. And it's going to use what's called entity detection, right? So when I say Diane, it knows that's a person. It knows that person's on my team and I'm allowed to move Diane, and it will confirm with me. Did you mean Diane Palmer? And this is the employee ID. Yes, I did. You said April 18th. I actually didn't say April 18th. I said next week, but that's essentially April 18th, isn't it? So I say yes. And did you mean Nettie with that employee ID? I say yes. What comments? Diane needs a change of scenery or whatever. Boom. Now this is submitted to PeopleSoft via component interface. It goes into a workflow queue. HR approves it just like they always do. And now I've just transferred someone in a matter of seconds without having to remember my training or without having to call anyone for HR. And so you can do some really powerful things here in chat. What about like reporting or analytics? So we have an adapter to OBIE. So for example, I could do, let's see, can you run a training report, let's see, for Espinoza. I'm gonna throw a couple typos in there. So I know there's an OBIE training report. I happen to know it. That report takes in an input, right? It's identified Espinoza is a person. Did I mean Carmichael? Yes, I do. It's actually going to run this report in real time. The report is short enough that it's putting the output in here. Espinoza's taken 3 training classes. So as Espinoza's manager, as Carmichael's manager, I very quickly got access to those records without having to hunt and peck around, without having to call an HR generalist. If this report was longer, or if I wanted to, I could actually send this to my email as well. So that PDF or that Excel will be delivered right to my inbox. So you can kind of get a sense for how conversational UI can be a replacement for the traditional point and click UI. And that's really kind of that stage 4 type of digital assistant deployment. So let's do, or maybe I just want to look up data. So let's do something like, I don't know, I'd like to see Cynthia's salary, please. Let's see. Do I mean Cynthia Adams? Yes, I do. Boom, let's look up her data records. Let's pull up her salary. I've just interacted with PeopleSoft without having to log in. So you can imagine all these different scenarios can make this pretty powerful. So let's go. I want to show you a student example. Before we do that, I want to go back and show, we got 15 minutes, so I'm going to move super fast. I want to show you this experience on Microsoft Teams because this has been popular lately. It's another channel. And if your employees are on Microsoft Teams all day, every day, great. That's even better. We could use Microsoft Teams to nudge them and alert them. So in this example, you see here, Mark is talking to Tim. They're having a little chat. And if you keep your eye on the left-hand side, all of a sudden you see Ida reaches out and says, hey, I need your attention. You get something to do here. And so Mark, kind of very politely tells Tim, hold on a second, I'll be right back. Clicks over on Microsoft Teams. And this is all using Oracle Digital Assistants. It's just a different channel. And you can see here, the bot is telling Mark, you have an expiring certificate, right? Maybe this is a healthcare provider, and maybe I'm in nursing and I got to keep my certificates up. All that data is in PeopleSoft HR. Boom, I'm on top of it. I'm going to make sure you never expire. And that's just kind of an example. And because I'm in Teams anyway, it could be really powerful. So let's show you, I want to save time for Q&A. So I'm going to show you a couple examples on the student side. and then we will go to Q&A. If you feel like you didn't get enough of a demo and you want more, we can always set up a more personalized demo for you and go through all your interest areas. Okay, so I'm going to sign out of here. And let me go over as a student. So this is my kind of student portal. I'm going to come in here. Let's close this down. Let's do, what do students care most about? Let's do something like what are my class? I'm typing just like my kids text me. If they're not going to spell correctly, then why should I? Oh, boom, connected to PeopleSoft. Here are the classes you're registered in. Great. Well, what if English isn't my primary language? And I'm having trouble, getting my words right. So let's just switch over. Let's test my Spanish. So on the fly, this technology can identify I've switched languages and boom, get the same answer all in Spanish. No translations, no language packs. This is all automatic. So while automatic isn't perfect, it's actually using Google Translate behind the scenes. It is pretty good. And if you can cover, over 100 languages 24/7 in a couple seconds, that's a great level of service, right? It's great to turn that on. It's not that expensive to do so either. Let's do one other example here. What if somebody like a student especially types something in, maybe a little concerning. I can't do this anymore. So we can train these bots to understand any scenario, right? To handle anything. And it doesn't always have to be about business or about data and records. In this case, it's more of a wellness thing, right? If somebody types something like that, immediately I want to say, hey, yeah, I get it. It's tough. Let's set up a time right now. Let's get you on the calendar, talk to an advisor. Okay, fine. And you'd be surprised when you're talking to a machine, how you might be more open than when you're talking to a human being. So now you can act on these scenarios, right? So, okay, Friday, my schedule is, just too much, for example. So what's happening here is this whole situation, we're actually taking this transcript, we're putting it in an email, we're shooting it off to their advisor. Hey, this just happened. We need you to confirm this appointment. Reach out to this student, confirm, make sure everything's good, and then let's sit down on Friday and talk about what's going on and find a way forward. And so that's a kind of an interesting way how you can use this technology to deal with situations like this. One other thing I want to show you before we go to Q&A is I'm going to log in here as an advisor, right? A lot of times you'll see this technology used only for students or only for employees. You're not going to maximize value that way. It can be used for managers and supervisors, department heads, faculty, advisors, all these different personas. There is value all over those places. So please explore those things. So I've logged in as an advisor here. I know I'm having a problem with Daniel. Daniel is not able to register for classes. He told me this, so I'm going to come in here and say, does Dan have any holds on his account? In higher ed, what this means is Dan did something that has blocked him from taking classes, right? Not Dan, Daniel Freeman. He goes by Daniel. Did you mean Daniel Freeman? Yes. Okay. I definitely meant Daniel Freeman. Let's take a look, pull up his account. Aha, library fine, right? Who amongst us hasn't missed their library fine payment, right? So has Daniel, and he's not allowed to register for classes until he clears this up. Well, the digital assistant's going to say, hey, what about I remind Daniel Freeman for you? I'll give him a little nudge that he can take care of this library fine. How's that sound? Yeah, that sounds great. I got a meeting to go to. I got other stuff to do, right? Okay, so let's log out of here. Let's come back in as Daniel. And voila, I should see some differences here. And look at this, I get this little alert. I have items awaiting your attention. Oh, please give me a moment. Oh, I see I have a couple things. Oh, I only have one thing for you to do. It has to do with the library find. It's actually all this data is getting pulled from PeopleSoft. I can rectify this situation. I can allow the student to dismiss this, or I can come back to this later, maybe snooze this alert, that sort of thing. And so now you're using this digital assistant to drive business process, right? There's a deadline you haven't submitted yet. You've got something coming up. You've missed a homework assignment. You haven't taken this training. Your certificate is expiring. That is stage 4 level, digital assistant automation. And it can really provide a lot of value. So I want to make sure to show you that. But I know we are running short on time. So I think, Scott, should we do some Q&A?
Absolutely. It doesn't look like there's anything right now in the queue. Does anybody want to pose anything to Andrew?
In the meantime, I actually do have, while we wait for that to come in, I do have a couple final slides anticipating a couple questions here. Oftentimes people will ask us, well, you guys do this all the time, right? How long does it take? Our methodology is we spend 12 weeks on our first launch. We usually do about 300 unique outcomes in those 12 weeks. Half that time is spent revising and refining the AI, doing iterative testing and agile cycles. Half that time is spent setting up configurations and getting single sign-on working and that sort of thing. So that's pretty typical.
Andrew, we do have a question.
Yeah.
Is Picasso multi-language?
The multilingual feature is built into Oracle Digital Assistant. So you license Oracle Digital Assistant, you turn on Picasso, and then what you do is there's a language feature in ODA that you can enable. You hook it up, in this case, to a Google Translate account or a Microsoft Translator account, and that translation service is metered. So if you set that up yourself, you will be charged every month based on how many translations occur.
Awesome. Thank you. And now they're coming in quickly.
Okay.
You talked about the channels you can interact with. What are some of the channels you are still looking to connect?
So the most popular channels we use today are the web channel, primarily because it tends to be the most secure. A lot of people will talk about the Alexa channel, but it's not used practically, probably because of the sensitivity of data flowing over Amazon servers. The second most popular channel is Microsoft Teams. So we've done that a lot more so on the commercial side than on the higher education side. SMS is a channel that we get asked about a lot, but you want to be careful around PII, private personally identifiable information on SMS. It's not, a secure channel. So oftentimes something like Microsoft Teams is much more secure. You're authenticated into the enterprise at that point. So Teams and the web are the most popular. There's a little bit of SMS, not much Alexa right now these days.
This one's an interesting one. Are you able to accommodate a completely custom bolt-on module in PeopleSoft?
So two ways. If you used IDA, which is our kind of layer on top of ODA, yes, we have something called our data source plugin, which allows you to tap into any bolt-on or customization you have in PeopleSoft pretty easily, simply with an app package or a query. We have clients that are tapping into those, deploying skills that use their customization in a matter of a couple hours. If you were going a traditional Picasso route, you would essentially just have to build an integration to that customization, which means, either by way of query or some integration broker work or some, something like that.
And then we've got one that's a combination of a comment and a question. Your chatbot IDA is sophisticated and does more than most would expect. How do you get people to understand it is more than a FAQ chatbot?
Oh my gosh, I love that question because we've asked ourselves that over the last year. And it's great. And what we actually, it's like this was teed up for me. We just released our version 2201. And in 2201, we have a feature called IDA Suggestions. And what IDA Suggestions does is it tries to tackle the very problem you're talking about, right? When your chatbot does 10 things, it's pretty easy to figure out what those 10 things are. When your chatbot does 1,000 things, how do you explore, right? All those things. So in IDA, you could type help allow you to explore different categories that it can help you with, benefits or travel or what have you. But IDIS Suggestions is a new feature which looks at, okay, what's brand new, what's popular, what's being promoted. And when I'm in there, it could say, hey, while I have you, everybody keeps asking me about booster shots and the return to the office. Do you want to learn more about that? I'm like, well, yes, absolutely. I thought you only gave paycheck details. Of course I do. And then it will tell you the answer. And that suggestions feature attempts to strike this balance of being informative without being annoying. Users can snooze it, turn it off. It'll only interject at certain intervals that you control. And so that's how we're going to tackle that problem, is with this feature, is to, it's like a drip campaign of, telling people, hey, I can help you with this that you don't know about. I can help you over here and you didn't know about that. So that over time, their behaviors start to change and they start to understand, look, all my concerns, I should come here first and ask, because this is the easiest solution, the fastest way to get my answer. So that's how we're doing it right now.
Awesome. That is it for now in terms of what's in the queue.
Okay. So 2 more slides, 3 minutes. What have we learned over the last, 3 or 4 years being so deep in this technology? Number one, accuracy is important. I've belabored that point. One-stop shopping is important, right? We've had clients who try to implement digital assistants or chatbots kind of departmentally, right? Only for one function. And we had one client, in fact, we did a pilot where we picked 3 departments that we were going to cover. And we get something like, almost half of our questions coming in had nothing to do with those 3 departments. Like once they open that chat window, they think it's fair game. Everything's fair game. I can ask anything under the sun. So the problem is if you go with a departmental level, game plan, you're going to have a large percentage of people who are dissatisfied because their questions don't get answered. You need to anticipate that you're going to get everything under the sun. Breadth matters. Being able to handle a large variety of questions. You don't have to do it on day one, right? You can build it into your bot's personality. Hey, I'm learning, I'm getting better, come check back. But you need to have an agile approach to evolve and add, answers to questions you're seeing users ask. And you need to be able to monitor that. And we have a bunch of tools we use for that, the very same purpose, monitor for those gaps. And AI, again, it's an evolution. It's not a one-time project, right? You think about it, this AI is replacing a human being, essentially, right? So a human being, you hire a brand new hire, you send them to training, you have them work at the help desk, you tell them about all the business policies, and then boom, the pandemic happens. Now what? Well, that human being has to learn, well, what policies have changed? What's new? How are things different now? AI, same thing. It's always evolving. Language is evolving. There's seasonality in your business. So you need to be thinking about it as an evolution. And the more you put in, the more you get out. The customers we have that put the most in, they see the most value and the most volume.
Andrew, we've got another question if we've got time.
Yep.
Has this been used to crawl a repository of knowledge that hasn't had good maintenance or governance and successfully suggested the most relevant or current info?
That's a great question. So let me answer. Let me provide a couple points on that. Number one, today there's this old adage, right? Garbage in, garbage out. Websites over time have become a bit garbagey. When you crawl a site, that's really no different than web search. And in our experiences and conversations with customers and users, they don't trust the web search unless it says Google. They've just had so many bad experiences. And oftentimes the web searches just don't perform well. One of our clients, Loyola, actually side by side took use cases, tested them on the web search, and then tested them in the digital assistant and found the experience to be far superior in the digital assistant. And the reason why is we purposely avoid crawling because it creates confusion in the NLP and it produces inaccurate, unpersonalized answers, right? And so we use a more curated learning model, a machine learning model that is, we think produces far superior accuracy results. And I think the data backs that up. So we intentionally avoid crawling.
So we're going to keep this going for a few more minutes. Another question, does your tool set evolve separately from your release schedule?
Well, yes. So when we release something, we're releasing technical features. The AI itself has a process that it goes through where it can learn from usage. It learns from how, questions users are asking that it doesn't have answers to. It is able to identify outcomes that are maybe less than ideal, someone getting frustrated, someone swearing at the bot, right? And it uses those data points to refine the AI so that its accuracy climbs. So we have one client in particular in a massive 60 country global company. And when they first started, their accuracy level was about 70%. Within 6 months, they got it up to 94%. That to give you an example of how it can get smarter over time.
And one more right now. Can it be possible to use it as a Teams application or IBM same time application for chatting for Teams and to store the chat in PeopleSoft tables?
Same time, I don't think so. But Microsoft, that's not a supported channel by Oracle. But Microsoft Teams, if you're using that, yes, you can have the bot inside a channel. And all the interactions and logs of those chats, you absolutely could store in PeopleSoft, yes.
Great. And that's it.
So we run a blog on IntraSee. It's meant to be kind of industry analysis, reflections on things we've learned over the years. I think there's some great stuff there to read if you're interested in learning more about this technology and some of the challenges our customers have faced and how they've dealt with them and other things like that. Go check that out. It's got some good stuff on it.
This is Paul Taylor. I'm the president and CEO at Gideon Taylor. And Scott apparently was worried about my wardrobe today and disabled my video. But I just wanted to throw in that at Gideon Taylor, we've always been about taking Oracle's priorities and trying to make them work in the real world and for real use cases. Oracle has definitely been seeing chat as a critical point of investment, and they've been pouring work into it. And it is interesting and exciting to see what they're doing. Like Andrew said, IntraSee has really been trying to take an approach that meets the real world demand and can leverage what Oracle has done, uses Oracle's preferred platform in ODA, but to the extent that when Oracle talks about this, like last year, and David Bain in his PeopleSoft roadmap session showed a bunch of the investment that they were doing, announced Picasso, and laid out those 10 skills that Andrew listed previously. And then as the success story, the case study showed an IntraSee client and IntraSee result. And what basically IntraSee has been able to take that Oracle vision and those Oracle tools and really make them work in a real world scenario, which is really what interested us. And we felt like that really fit with our vision of really making these technologies work in the real world and do what clients need them to do. And that's it for me.
Fantastic. Andrew, any final comments?
No, I'm sure if you had other questions that come up that you didn't get answered or come to mind later, Scott, is there somewhere they should reach out? You could go contact at IntraSee.com, or maybe Scott, you have another place they can reach out to.
Yeah, you guys are welcome to send an email directly to me, scott@GideonTaylor.com. We keep it pretty simple. We're more than happy to follow up on any questions that come up after. Otherwise, you can also find contact information on the Gideon Taylor website or the IntraSee website. So feel free to reach out to us via either one of those methods. I would just like to thank Andrew for a great presentation and thank all of you for joining us this afternoon. If you do have other questions, let us know. You can find a lot of information out on the IntraSee website, IntraSee.com, or on the Gideon Taylor website, GideonTaylor.com. We will be sending out links, as I mentioned earlier, to this presentation. You'll probably also receive invitations to other webinars that we'll be doing throughout the course of the year. We try to schedule these on an every other month basis, and they always deal with something related to PeopleSoft. We're all about making PeopleSoft easier, faster, better, and more efficient. So thank you very much, everybody. I hope you have a great afternoon.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.